You're standing at the edge of a river so dark it swallows light. A hunched old man extends his palm. He doesn't ask your name. He doesn't care who you loved, what you built, what you lost. He wants one thing, a coin. And if you don't have it, you stand on that bank forever. Not burning, not screaming, just forgotten. That's worse than any hell you've ever been told about. 2,500 years ago, 3 civilizations stared into the void and built entire worlds on the other side of death. Not to comfort themselves, to warn each other, and the fears they poured into those underworlds say more about how they lived than any temple or crown ever could. But to understand why a bronze coin mattered more than a sword, why a feather could erase your soul, and why the coldest place in myth wasn't punishment but simply where most people ended up, we need to go deeper, into the caves, under the roots of a cosmic tree, past gates guarded by monsters with crocodile jaws. 3 doors, 3 civilizations, 3 completely different nightmares. Let's start with the Greeks, because their version of the afterlife is the bleakest thing you've never been told about. Forget what you think you know. Elysium, those shining fields, the paradise of heroes, almost nobody got in. Out of every named figure in Homer's 2 great epics, the number who actually reached that blessed place is vanishingly small, a handful out of hundreds. The overwhelming majority ended up somewhere else entirely. Picture a field of gray flowers stretching to a horizon that never changes. No sun, no stars, just a pale, flat light that comes from nowhere. You walk through it. You pass other figures. They look like you. Faded, thin. They don't speak unless spoken to. And even then, their voices come out like wind through dry grass. This is the Asphodel Meadows. This is where most Greek souls went. Not punishment, not reward, just existence without meaning. And here's what makes it terrifying. You remember who you were. You remember the taste of wine and the sound of your children laughing. You remember sunlight on your shoulders, but you can't feel any of it. You're a photograph of yourself, growing dimmer by the century. The Greeks didn't fear fire, they feared irrelevance. That fear ran so deep, it shaped how they buried their dead. Across thousands of graves near Athens, the vast majority contained a small coin placed on the tongue or in the hand of the corpse. Payment for the ferryman, because the one thing worse than drifting through gray meadows forever was never even getting across the river, being stuck on the wrong bank with no passage, no destination, no one even acknowledging you existed. But why would a culture obsessed with heroes and glory build an afterlife where glory barely matters? Think about it. Athens was a city where only a fraction of the population counted as full citizens. Women, foreigners, enslaved people. They had no political voice, and even among citizens, only the truly exceptional earned statues or songs. For everyone else, the message was brutal and honest. You will be forgotten. The afterlife just made that truth permanent. Now here's where it gets strange. While the Greeks feared fading into nothing, a civilization far to the north feared something completely different. They didn't dread obscurity. They dreaded dying in bed. Under the roots of a world tree so vast its branches held up the sky, Norse mythology split the dead into 2 groups. And the sorting had nothing to do with whether you were kind or generous or wise. It came down to one question. How did you die? Imagine a frozen plain, rivers of ice cutting through black rock, a gate made of iron, groaning in a wind that never stops. This is where most of the dead arrived, not because they were wicked, because they were ordinary. They died of sickness, old age, an accident, anything other than combat. And for that, they walked into a cold that doesn't kill you, because you're already dead, but never lets you feel warm again. Only a small fraction got the other door, the golden one, where armored women on winged horses swept down from the sky and chose you. Not because you won the fight, because you fought well enough to be noticed. Those winged figures, the choosers of the slain, appear by name in the old poems, each one scanning the battlefield for something specific. Not strength, not victory, valor, the willingness to stand when standing meant dying. And if your name lit up on their list, you rose. If it didn't, you walked downhill into the cold. But here's something most people miss about this system. It wasn't just about warriors. It was about a society where survival depended on shared bravery. Scandinavia in the Viking Age was harsh. Short growing seasons, raids from rivals, freezing winters that could wipe out a village. A culture like that doesn't reward caution. It rewards the person who charges first, who holds the line, who makes everyone else a little braver just by not running. The afterlife enforced that value. Die with a sword in your hand and you feast forever. Die any other way and you walk into ice. It's not justice, it's incentive. And people believed it deeply enough to spend days chipping runes into rock so the choosers might notice they're dead. These weren't just stories told around fires, they were carved into stone. But what about the people who couldn't fight? The old, the sick, children? That's where the Norse system shows its cracks. It valued one path so completely that everyone else was, by definition, lesser. Not punished exactly, just excluded. The cold realm wasn't torture, it was indifference. And for a culture that prized being remembered in song, indifference was its own kind of death. Now, if Greek fear was about losing identity, and Norse fear was about dying without honor, the Egyptians feared something far more personal. They feared being weighed and found wanting. You're in a dark hall. The ceiling is so high you can't see it. Ahead of you stands a scale. On one side, a feather so light, it barely bends the air. On the other side, your heart. Not a symbol, your actual heart. Cut from your chest by a jackal-headed god who doesn't blink, doesn't speak, just places it on the pan and steps back. And now everyone watches. A bird-headed scribe records the result. 42 judges line the walls, each one listening as you recite a list of things you did not do. I did not steal. I did not lie. I did not cause suffering. I did not pollute the river. 42 denials, spoken into a silence so deep you can hear the scale creak. This was the negative confession, and it appeared in nearly every funeral text the Egyptians produced. Not some of them, nearly all of them. It was the most copied, most feared, most obsessively prepared for moment in Egyptian religion. Because if your heart was heavy, if the weight of your life tipped that scale even slightly, something moved in the shadows behind the scale. A creature with the jaws of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippo. It didn't chase you. It didn't roar. It simply ate your heart. And when it did, you didn't go to any underworld. You didn't drift, or freeze, or fade. You just stopped. Completely. A second death, the Egyptians called it. The first death took your body. The second one erased your soul. The Egyptians prepared for this moment with a focus that borders on obsession. Heart-shaped amulets were placed on mummies in huge numbers. Spells were written to prevent the heart from betraying its owner, literally commanding it to stay silent about sins the person had committed. One spell, carved onto scarabs and placed directly over the chest, essentially told the heart not to testify against its own body. Think about that. They were so afraid of their own hearts that they wrote magic to keep them quiet. But here's the nuance that makes this system more complex than it first appears. The Egyptians didn't apply their moral standards equally. Male mummies carried heart amulets at a higher rate than female ones. Not a huge gap, but consistent enough to suggest that moral preparation, like so much else in ancient Egypt, reflected the social order of the living world. And this pattern repeats across all three cultures. The Greek afterlife mirrored Athenian citizenship. Only full citizens received the complete funeral rites. Foreigners and enslaved people were often buried without the coin, condemned not by the gods, but by social exclusion. Norse graves tell a similar story. Only a tiny fraction of women were buried with swords, the mark of a warrior destined for the Golden Hall. These underworlds weren't just spiritual beliefs, they were mirrors. Every fear projected onto the afterlife was a fear already alive in the streets, the markets, the battlefields of the living world. Now, someone might argue that these myths only reflect what priests and poets wanted people to believe, not what ordinary people actually feared. And that's a fair challenge. Most of our written sources come from elites. Temple walls and epic poems were sponsored by kings and aristocrats. But the graves tell a different story. When the vast majority of burials in a region include that ferryman's coin, that's not an elite custom. That's everyone. When nearly every scroll placed in a coffin copies the same 42 denials across centuries and social classes, that's not propaganda. That's genuine fear, passed down from parent to child, scribe to scribe, generation to generation. Ordinary people invested real resources, real time, real emotion into navigating death's uncertainties. They didn't do it because a priest told them to. They did it because the alternative, the grey field, the frozen gate, the crocodile jaws, was too terrible to risk. And here's the thing that connects all of this to right now. These three fears haven't gone away. The dread of being forgotten drives every social media post, every legacy project, every desperate grab for relevance in a world that moves too fast to remember yesterday. The worship of heroic death echoes in every culture that glorifies sacrifice and dismisses quiet lives as lesser. And the terror of moral judgment lives in every courtroom, every confession booth, every late-night reckoning with the things you've done and the person you've become. We didn't invent these fears. We inherited them. We just gave them new names. If these underworlds pulled you in, the next story goes even deeper, into a civilization that tried to cheat death entirely and almost succeeded. Subscribe so you don't miss it. 3 doors still stand in the dark, one grey, one golden, one shadowed by scales, and somewhere a feather is waiting to be placed on the other side of your heart.